It's a Lawfare family affair. Another day, another walk to another courthouse. That's a great song, isn't it? Family Affair. Let's see if we're live here. You know, I'm constantly switching between... Yes, we're live. Welcome to the Family Affair again. The lifespan of these stabilizers is remarkably short. Let's see if we can get this thing back in business here. Okay, heading back to the courthouse right now. People can probably tell by the title, I'm perplexed by the Sweigerts brothers. If you've been following Crowdsource the Truth since the beginning, you're going to recall that when I started this channel, the plan was to make it an interview channel and to speak to journalists and newsmakers and interesting people, create content for everybody to watch on YouTube, and now we got BitChute and Band.video, of course Patreon and Subscribestar. I do like talking about those two websites. That is how I fund this operation. That's how I make money. That's how I'm able to continue doing this for 3+ years. But you know, there's people who want me to stop. I don't get it. If you don't like the show, you can just tune out, turn it off, ignore me. There's certainly lots of stuff to watch on YouTube and elsewhere. And it's just so interesting how persistently these guys continue their efforts to destroy my business, destroy my personal reputation, constantly aggravate me, just sue me indefinitely, make videos about me every day. Who has time to do this? Everybody that I know is extremely concerned about the future of the country, the situation that's going on around us. People see New York City, you know, deteriorating into a shell of its former self, is what I'm getting at. Stores closed, businesses closed, people worried about their families. Yesterday we heard our goon governor describe that the schools are closing. I mean, he was so, if people didn't see that Andrew Cuomo press conference yesterday, it's worth looking for. He is just not only tyrannical, I mean, it's literally like a scene out of The Sopranos. You've got this imposing New York guy telling you, do not be obnoxious in your tone. It's ridiculous. He's telling this journalist who asks him about his schizophrenic, you know, executive policy where you can close down a restaurant and seal people in these exterior things. I mean, this looks like plastic to me. People will remember one of my very first journeys to Elmhurst Hospital. We had that guy who appeared ridiculous at the time. He was all wrapped up in plastic gear that he had assembled himself. And he made the accurate assessment that the virus can't go through plastic. So if it can't go through plastic, and the genius Governor Andrew Cuomo has allowed restaurants to build these plastic encampments around themselves. Wow, look at this. Look at how this was a bank, I think. Okay, so Andrew Cuomo is sitting around telling journalists how to be polite, which is like Andrew Cuomo telling people to be smart, wear a mask. Has anybody ever seen that guy wearing a mask? Wasn't his own brother, who's another jackass on CNN, wasn't he fined by his fancy New York City apartment building $500 for not wearing a mask in the public spaces of the apartment building, which they mandate him to do? Oh yeah, he was. So the governor sits there in a room of journalists who are socially distanced from him, and the journalists are all wearing masks, which I don't understand. If we've got social distancing, why do we need the mask? And if they are socially distanced but still forced to wear a mask. Why does the governor not have to wear a mask? Wouldn't it be sort of projecting his policy to do what it is that he's telling other New Yorkers to do, to subject themselves to? And while he's keeping their kids out of school, I saw a great presentation. I should save the link and post it. It was a guy talking about how, babies being born right now. There's 8-month-old babies right now who are going to grow up in a world where they don't see faces, they don't see smiles. What does that do to the the socialization of a child like that? At what point do we learn to read body language and that a smile is a sign of warmth or affection or happiness or whatever, and a frown? You see people and you say, "Oh, what's wrong?" "Oh, nothing." "Are you sure? Seems like you're, we have this ability to read each other." And I think a lot of that has to do with the facial expressions. Go look at some animated cartoon like that Tom Hanks weirdo movie where he's on a train. Even reducing slightly the expressive nature of a human face really reduces the information that's conveyed by that. They call it the uncanny valley when they're talking about, computer animation or robotics or any kind of simulation of real life. So we've got these babies who are growing up essentially in the uncanny valley. Yeah. I'm in a bit of a hurry because I got to get down to the courthouse. You see, this new normal. I missed it. It said masks speak louder than words or something like that. In this new normal, there's a lot of changes. People have heard that I'm being sued all over the place. Robert David Steele, we got Steele v. Goodman. He's resubmitted his case. He's refiled in the Eastern District of Virginia in the Alexandria Division. Now, as I read the transcript, that is a direct violation of the judge's orders. I don't know why the judge chose to dismiss that case without prejudice, allowing Robert David Steele and his attorney another opportunity to file the same claims, but she did specify that it would have to be in her court if it were to refile. I think that was because she recognized that the claims were absolutely absurd, but she wanted to give them an opportunity to form a cogent complaint and have an opportunity to access the courts. I don't know, but I think these federal judges are very reluctant to, particularly in stupid cases like this, to operate with a very heavy hand, because there's certain things that they can do that would basically enable the movement to appeal, to challenge the judge. So here's more ACAB, abolish the police. This was like a Duane Reade, I think. This was in business until pretty recently. Walgreens, I think those two things merged. So this was a drugstore, kind of little convenience supermarket, bigger than a convenience store. It was like a mini supermarket drugstore. And now people in this neighborhood, they don't have that anymore. I don't know, maybe there's old people who live here who now have to walk really far. How will their lives be affected? I think a lot of old people enjoy living in New York because they don't need to drive. A lot of convenient stuff close to where they live that they can walk to. But so yeah, Robert David Steele, he's refiled his case. Same claims, which is also a direct violation of the judge's order. I think she said that it's better not come back in here with exactly what I'm looking at right now or something to that effect. But of course that's what they did, because none of these guys actually have legitimate claims for which they're trying to seek relief. They just want to harass me with lawsuits. And unfortunately, the way our system is set up right now, there's a lot of opportunity for that. Look, I recognize that the law is complicated. I don't like these simplistic statements that, the courts are rigged. I'm not saying that I don't want to agree or disagree with it. I just find it such a gross oversimplification of the problem that it just tells you nothing. The issue is the law is complicated and there's an unlimited number of circumstances that can arise, and we got this bureaucratic process for dealing with them. It's just real complicated. So I think there's things that can be fixed. What do we got going on here? Some kind of yoga class inside a plastic thing. What the hell have things come to here? So that's what I mean. We got a world around us that's deteriorating, and then we got morons who are focused on suing me for fake crap. Nonsense. So 2 weeks ago, the magistrate in Sweigerts v. Goodman, which, you know, this is a matter of public interest. I can mention the name Sweigerts. He's suing me. It's on the docket. You know, he gets all bent out of shape and tries to get additional causes of action. He's definitely going to try to strike this YouTube video. He mentioned some plan to, what was he talking about? He's always got plans. Every day, this guy's thinking about me. In the pleadings, he says he's got a handicapped son. I didn't know that. Somebody told me he had a son that he abandoned. Close friend of his. I didn't, you know, I didn't know he was handicapped. That makes it more terrible. Why would you abandon a handicapped son? And then why would you admit to that on the internet? I guess it's the same reason why you would threaten your own nephew to destroy his career. I mean, this is such a misanthropic individual. Something's got to be done to prevent him from bringing all these pro se lawsuits, wasting judicial resources, harassing people. We got restaurants closing, businesses closing, people losing their livelihoods, governors seizing tyrannical power, telling people what they can and cannot do with their kids, their bodies, public education. We're in a disastrous state right now, and the Sweigerts are determined to persist in their lawfare attacks against me. Why is that? Why is that? I don't know. We could speculate, but definitely seems like there is a really passionate desire to destroy Crowdsource the Truth. So I would encourage people to get on to band.video, to certainly Patreon and Subscribestar, because the distinct possibility exists that Crowdsource the Truth may be eliminated from YouTube. It's not just the Sweigerts who are trying to do this. There's a collection of individuals who seem to be associated with them. I don't want to do them the service of mentioning their names, but these are the same people that have been around for 3.5 years who I never knew. I didn't know these people before I, started doing videos with George Webb. And then people saw just a couple of weeks ago that guy, Harry, whatever his name is. There's a couple of markers that indicate social engineering activity. They're not proof. People are a little bit too hung up on the word proof. It's hard to determine proof. We need to start first with evidence, and we evaluate that evidence, and we have a sufficient amount of evidence to prove something depending on what that standard of proof is. That's how it goes. So one element of evidence that I've noticed that seems consistent across all social engineers is that they change their names. They use different names than their real names. They use fake names, nicknames, weird handles. I don't do that. I'm Jason Goodman. Everybody knows I'm Jason Goodman. You go back from the day I was born until today, I've always been just Jason Goodman. The channel's called Jason Goodman. You can look me up on the internet. All over the place, Jason Goodman. I'm not any kind of wild and crazy name. And so, I mean, look, I understand people go on YouTube, they want a cool angle, they want a hip nickname, they don't want weirdos looking them up or whatever. That is one valid reason why people might use that. Jack Dorsey was testifying before the Senate a couple days ago and adamantly defended people's rights to use these pseudonyms, pseudonymity. They're saying it's not anonymity, it's pseudonymity. Well, I disagree with it. I don't think you should be able to do that. I think if you want to be able to participate in the public space, you should be known. People like to reference the fact that the founding fathers, the pamphleteers used pseudonyms. That was a different time, and they were speaking out against a tyrant, the King of England, who had the ability to chop their heads off if he found out what they were doing. That's different than using an army of, sock puppet accounts to attack somebody who's just trying to make a news, information, and entertainment show on YouTube or whatever. It's a vastly different thing. I mean, this is a well-known tactic. It's quite clear to me that Jack Dorsey is a pro-Antifa, anti-justice, selfish, greedy, technocratic, oligarch, essentially. This is a guy who wants to control the flow of information and then decide arbitrarily who gets to say what. And if they don't like you, you're out. If they do like you, you say whatever you want and still stay there. You can insult people, you can attack people, you can organize violent protests, you can do all kinds of things, and they won't do anything. But if you're Donald Trump or anybody who supports him, you better look out. Social media is going to attempt to crush you. Here's a lawyer. You could ask him about lawfare. So right, the family affair. I'm not monitoring these guys constantly because I have so much more important things to do, and they're buffoons and generally a waste of my time. But I do have to pay attention to what they're doing to a certain extent, because I am being sued, and I can't ignore these things or they'll get default judgments against me and I'll be in a huge amount of jeopardy. People who have been following lately will know. Let me make sure if I get the dates right here. So around August 18th, that restaurant Fish I've been to, it's out of business, I think. Retail space for lease. That's too bad. Darn, lost my train of thought. Lawfare. Look, it's just everything is out of business. Look at this. Matt Humanoff guitars, gone. That was a classic place. Here's a store for rent right next to it. Guys, everything is going out of business, and we got people who are focused on suing me. And I mean, it's not like they have a valid claim. They're suing me for nonsense. So the latest thing is, right, I was monitoring them. This is what I wanted to tell people. It appears that George Webb has filed suit against cable news network, CNN. I didn't read the suit completely, but it's got to do with his reports on the Army reservist who George said was patient zero for coronavirus. And then, when I saw Donnie whatever his name is, Donnie O'Sullivan, dope who works for CNN, I don't think he's a good journalist at all. I think he's an irresponsible, obnoxious guy who uses a lot of, traditional mainstream journalist dishonest tactics. We've got another movie getting produced over here. I'm trying to see where I can walk and just kind of stay out of the fray. But Dopey Donnie did an expose about George where, George was asked certain questions about how he obtained his evidence that he based his report on. And from what I heard, George admitted that there basically was no evidence. And so, in standard fashion, he's just spouting out nonsense, defaming people, and, no evidence. So that's a problem. I started this because I was seeing so much reporting that was, based on no evidence, not just from George Webb, from the mainstream news, from everywhere. So when people come on my show and say things like, oh, Joe Biden married his second wife 2 days after the first wife died, I say, well, gee, Larry Gators, can you show me the evidence for that? Because that seems to not comport to what everybody else knows. And if that's true, that's explosive. When he refused to give the evidence, I asked for it again. There should be no reason to refuse that. I mean, also keep in mind, if there is no evidence, In that particular situation, the guy could have just said, well, you know what? I don't know. I just saw it in a tweet. Maybe it was wrong. I apologize. Let's retract it. That could have been done. These social engineers, they put out stories that are not backed by evidence, that can't be verified. Like Robert David Steele says he was a CIA officer. Well, where's the evidence of that? He says it's on his website. There's a bunch of documents that he wrote there. That's not evidence. That's not valid evidence. You might consider it evidence, but it's pretty poor evidence. He says he was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. Well, where's the evidence of that? It's a document that he wrote. I don't see any announcement from anybody in Norway. Remember when Donald Trump got nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize? That Norwegian member of parliament, Christian, what was the guy's name? I apologize. Charles and I met with him in Norway. And, that guy, he said, hey, Donald Trump has been nominated. Let's go this way. I don't want to get too lost in Greenwich Village here, and I'm getting off the direction I need to go in. The point is, claims are not evidence. This guy, General McInerney, was on OAN last night making the claim that the Hammer is a computer program used for illegal surveillance. Well, so first of all, this is a claim that has been in the public domain for years. And by the way, he just contradicted, what? I don't think that kid wanted me to film him, but I don't really know what he said. And then his father looked at me cross-eyed. The claim has been around for years. However, the last time it came around, 3D coloring book. Oh wow, look at that. It includes 3D glasses. That could be a fun Christmas gift if Christmas wasn't canceled, or a Hanukkah gift. They didn't say if Hanukkah was canceled, but I think they're just sort of canceling the entire anything Jewish. Since they love to do that. All right, so here we go, Bleecker Street. The claim has been around for years, but what I heard was that the Hammer was a supercomputer, not a computer program. Now that claim is disputed by the fact that Mike Zullo presented photographs taken in Dennis Montgomery's garage that seemed to show not a supercomputer, but just a server rack with a couple of blade servers in it. And that's not even necessarily more computing power than your laptop or your iPad if you have a new iPad Pro. Yeah, see, I'm gotta pay attention to where I'm walking here. Minetta, right, okay, here's 6th Avenue. Yeah. So that's not a supercomputer. And even if it is, how does that explain what it has to do with flipping the votes? There's so much evidence indicating that the scanners provided by Dominion Voting in combination with the consumer off-the-shelf technology like Android tablets and PCs with open USB ports. I mean, there are numerous reports from 2018 from IT professionals who give their credentials, who give detailed reports of how they've analyzed these things. I've seen videos of people who have bought these used voting machines from various places and shown ways that the hardware can be taken apart and standard hacker tools can be inserted in there, certain things that can be done in a matter of minutes. We've heard that people with administrator access can change aspects of these voting machines. Where is there any indication that the CIA used some kind of supercomputer and some kind of browser exploit throwing platform, which is what we were also previously told the Hammer was? Where's the indication that any of that stuff was used? What evidence shows us that that was used? General McInerney talking about it on the news is not evidence. And Sidney Powell retweeting it is also not evidence. It's frankly evidence that maybe somebody's trying to fool Sidney Powell. Because what I think a lot of people want to do is they want to get to somebody credible like Sidney Powell, and they want to co-opt her credibility and ruin it. That's another telltale sign of social engineers. See, that's what they do to me. Let's go back to Gators for a second. He shows up You know, he gains our trust, our interest, whatever you want to call it, by talking about secret societies and topics that are of interest and that he may have, in fact, some good information about. But then, once he's embedded and trusted and a regular guest who's generating a lot of views, frankly, more views than makes sense. One of those Kobe Bryant videos went to like 800,000 views on his channel. You know, I was simulcasting our videos on Jason Goodman, Crowdsource the Truth 2, and Gator's channel. And his channel was, at the time I kicked him out, half the subscribership of Crowdsource the Truth. So how does a channel with half the subscribership playing the exact same video get 800,000 views when on the Jason Goodman channel it was like 20,000, on Crowdsource 2 it was like 5,000. Oh yeah, Crowdsource the Truth 2. People should definitely check that out, because you know they're constantly trying to strike the Jason Goodman channel, constantly trying to take it out. Oh, and I should also mention, today, being November 19th, the strike from the, what an adorable little dog. The dog liked me, smiling. Yeah, today is the day that the strike from the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences was lifted. That strike was put on by Adam Sharp, the CEO of NATAS, the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, and that is a lawsuit that is pending. For people who missed it, those underhanded television jerks, after they struck the Jason Goodman channel, taking action against me personally, here's a lot of Verizon trucks, they struck the Jason Goodman channel, which was created and owned by the natural person Jason Goodman. But after a conversation with their lawyer, where I recommended that they not get involved with this because they could be landing themselves right in the middle, these are the stinky things. They could be landing themselves right in the middle of really onerous litigation that's been going on for several years. I told them I would take the offensive image down if they would just release the complaint from YouTube and release the strike. This was, 90 days ago or something. Right? Yeah, August. The strike came August 20th. Coincidentally, one day after David Sweigerts' motion to amend whatever, he wanted to amend his supplemental complaint or supplement his amended complaint or do something with his complaint, because that's how he operates. He puts in a frivolous complaint, and he knows enough about the law to properly plead these things, although they never seem to survive. The judges always find fatal deficiencies with them because he really doesn't know what he's doing with regard to the law and frankly anything that I've observed, but that's my opinion, He knows how to be irritating. He's an expert at that. So after the conversation with the NATAS lawyer, where I strenuously tried to convince her that it was just not in her client's interest at all to get embroiled in this, she refused to listen. And it's my opinion that from that conversation, this fancy, expensive Washington, D.C. lawyer. Now, the reason they might be using a Washington, D.C. law firm is because the really objectionable CEO of the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, a guy named Adam Sharp, who also runs a political consultancy called Sharp Things, and is photographed with Barack Obama and is constantly tweeting politically partisan things from a Twitter account that prominently displays that he's the CEO of a 501c3. Did people know that the Emmys are produced by a tax-exempt organization? Your tax money pays. Because the Emmys aren't paying tax, every single U.S. taxpayer is essentially subsidizing the Emmys, which give out awards to a bunch of rich jerks who get onto Twitter and tell you how you should think, like idiots like Alyssa Milano. I doubt she's ever won an Emmy, unless, Biggest Idiot is an award they give out. But, her and people like her who are just basically talking dopes who show up on television, they get Emmys. And then they, your tax dollars subsidize that. I object to that. And whether I object to it or not, it is a huge violation of IRS code for the CEO of a 501c3 to participate in politically partisan activities like making social media posts in favor of or opposition to a political candidate. I wonder, what can we do about this? And it doesn't seem like the IRS is ever investigating anything with any of these fancy rich jerks taking advantage of 501c3s like the Clinton Foundation. We've heard about all the problems with that. We've heard about the problems with the Diller von Furstenberg Foundation. Of course, Barry Diller, chairman and CEO of IAC. Not an anagram for CIA, although they're the ones who chose those letters, not me. Maybe it is an anagram for CIA. I'm not the one who put Chelsea Clinton on the board of a $2 billion company and gave her $10 million worth of stock. Why did he do that? IAC owns Vimeo. Why did they totally strike the Vimeo channel when Mike Moore and I revealed what Kathy Bachvar, the Secretary of State in Pennsylvania, which she was up to, that a court is now finding she did not have the legal authority to do? Isn't this defacing federal property? I mean, society is breaking down, and we have dopes dedicated to suing me. If these guys have got so much money laying around and such great legal minds, why don't they sue some of these governors that are overreaching and doing unconstitutional things? Wouldn't that be a better use of their time? It's a beautiful day, although cold, weather-wise, and it's pretty unpleasant as far as what's going on in general in the world and in New York. People saying nice chemtrails. Oh, wow, yeah, look at that. Is that? Wow. That might well be. They've spoken about geoengineering. We've heard former CIA director John Brennan give a presentation at the Council on Foreign Relations about aerosolized atmospheric injection. Let's see if I can get this microphone in a better spot. It's always tricky to position the microphone. Maybe that's better. I wasn't really looking at the comments, so I don't know if people were pissed off about the sound. Everything is forbidden now, according to Welcome Gameplay. Yeah, that's right. We've got a real oppressive situation brewing, and you would think that people, particularly people with children, would have better things to do than sue me, but they don't. So yeah, the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, we're moving forward with that lawsuit. After this conversation with their lawyer, it's my personal belief that she realized that if they were to face me in court pro se, I had adequate knowledge of the law, and she probably reviewed the pleadings that I submitted in Steele v. Goodman and Zweigert v. Goodman, and I'm not saying they're great, but at times they've been sufficient at, getting my position conveyed to the judge. And it's my personal opinion that this lawyer for the Emmys basically realized that if they faced me pro se, they would lose. And so they made the strategic decision to sue my corporation, which I cannot defend pro se. I had to hire a lawyer. And I think they calculated that I wouldn't be able to afford to do that, and that I would, cry and take the video down and beg them to stop the lawsuit, and that they would win through strategy. That is lawfare. Lawfare is utilizing the law not to achieve justice, but to bully people, to force them to do what you want. That is exactly what's happening with the election right now. It's happening, and there's a news component to lawfare. There's a media component, because you need public opinion to support your goals. for lawfare, particularly when you're talking about lawfare against the President of the United States and trying to overturn elections and stuff like that. Because remember, judges and lawyers for the opposition and witnesses and everybody involved is going to be subjected to that social engineering in the media, and it'll have an impact on the lawfare effort. So the same thing happens here. You know, when I last week said that Amazing Polly is a social engineer, I said it because she was spreading that stupid hammer and scorecard story, which I am confident is false. And I initially started the conversation asking her what causes her to think it's true, and she was real evasive in her answers. This is another social engineer tactic. Social engineers are really tantamount to liars, and people who have been lied to know that liars answer things indirectly. People who are being truthful might say, oh, I don't know, or, I thought it was because of this, that, or the other, but now that you raise these points, perhaps you're right, I'll take it down, I'll issue a retraction. When we have no explanation for something that should have a logical explanation, that creates a problem. So now we see David Sweigerts producing videos encouraging Amazing Polly to sue me. I think that would be a big mistake for her because several reasons. First of all, I think she lives in Canada, so that would be kind of crazy expensive to get an international lawsuit going. Second of all, what are her damages? When you call somebody a social engineer, what are the damages there? I'm saying she's lying about something in particular, and I have evidence to back up that allegation. Tweets, she might have, no, I saved the tweets. She blocked me on Twitter. Social engineers love to communicate on Twitter because at any moment they could just block you and then you lose access to all the communications. And it makes it difficult to submit that stuff in court. These crafty social engineers know how to defy civil and criminal prosecution. So what I'm talking about that's being executed against me, this is a tactic, this is a playbook, this is not something that George Webb and his brother made up. This is like a tried and true method that can be used all the way up and down. I really believe that Dershowitz is engaged in lawfare with these civil lawsuits in the Epstein case. I haven't been looking at that too much lately, but what happened from that? Evidence got struck and things got placed under seal and criminal things got delayed or other civil things got delayed, and who the hell knows what he's doing? That's, it's one thing to be able to identify a chess game by looking at it. It's another to win at chess. I don't think I could beat Dershowitz at lawfare, but I'm pretty sure that's what he's doing. And likewise, this is what David Sweigerts is doing. This is what Robert David Steele is doing. And it seems to be what George is now doing with CNN. So back to that. George, 2 or 3 weeks ago, filed a lawsuit against CNN. Now that is idiotic because George is an even worse lawyer than his brother. And that's pretty bad. And also CNN has a ton of money and a ton of lawyers and the facts and the law on their side. George made claims against an innocent woman with no evidence, and the woman says it destroyed her life, that people were giving her death threats and hate mail, and she's now had to hire a lawyer, run down all her money. This is what these guys are trying to do. They just want to make everybody's life miserable. I don't know why Matya Benassi was selected by George as a target. Maybe it's a legitimate mistake on his part. I don't think so, based on his track record, the way he operates and what he does. But now we see that his brother has filed a motion to intervene in the CNN lawsuit because he wants to bring it to New York, and he wants to name me as being on George's side against CNN. I have nothing to do with anything George said or did relative to CNN. Anything that was said by or about CNN about me in 2017. I haven't even looked into this, but defamation claims from 3 years ago are past the statute of limitations. Look at this, whatever street I go down, tons of stuff are out of business. So we've got this big problem. I don't know how to get these guys to stop. I don't know how to get them to go away. What's happening right now in Zweigert v. Goodman is the magistrate judge has actually issued a report and recommendation that the thing go forward with discovery. And now Zweigert has sent me these interrogatories that he thinks I'm going to be afraid to answer under penalty of perjury. There's nothing in there that I'm afraid to answer. None of the answers that he wants them to be are actually true. That's all concocted nonsense that he came up with in his mind. The reason I don't want to get involved with him is that it's a huge waste of time, money, effort, opportunity costs, or other things I could be doing. And he's seeking information about my personal life that has nothing to do with anything in the case, and he's surely going to attempt to spread that around the internet for whatever purpose. I mean, the guy takes the most innocent thing and weaves a ridiculous story around it and then claims to have evidence of whatever. So I just don't want to engage with someone like that and give them an opportunity to get access to emails with people. He wants to dig into Corsi, and I got to look at that again too. I mean, I can barely tolerate looking at the stupid pleadings from these guys because it's just pure nonsense. And I'm frankly disgusted with the court for allowing this type of thing to go on. Now that we're living in the new normal world of pandemic COVID-19 craziness, one of the substantial deterrents to this type of lawfare is gone. You know, used to be you'd get to a point where eventually a vexatious litigant like Zweigert would have to show up in New York, travel from whatever shithole he's tucked into to here. Used to be very expensive to rent a hotel room here. And so the notion of coming and, prosecuting a civil lawsuit, even if you're pro se, it wasn't free, and there was something of a deterrent to doing it. Now that that's gone, these vexatious litigants can just file away. They can attend the hearings, telephonically. It's all happening on Zoom and whatever. So I think it's time for the courts to change their policies, maybe even change the laws. We've got idiots like Andrew Cuomo in Albany focused on wearing masks and how many people can come over for Thanksgiving, stuff that they really don't even have constitutional authority to tell you to do. And meanwhile, they allow abusive, vexatious litigants to file ridiculous nonsense in the courts. I mean, this is the same court that's hearing murder trials. People should be upset about this. These guys are wasting judicial resources. Your tax money pays to run these courts. And these guys use it as their, personal abuse factory to spread lies and to try to get money from me. And keep in mind, if I ignore this stuff, they get a default judgment and they could get money. In the case of the Emmys, who knows? This could go on for years. The bill with the lawyer is already thousands of dollars. So I want to thank the people that have gone to crowdsourcethetruth.com, also crowdsourcethetruth.org. Both are the same. Both URLs lead to the same page. But when you go there, you can scroll down past the video, and I once again forgot to make today's video on there, but I'll do that when I get back. You can scroll down past the video, and there's a section there that talks about the Counter Lawfare Fund. David Zweigert hates that. He's made videos about it. He's put pleadings in saying that I'm trying to raise money off of this. I'm just trying to not go broke. I'm trying to have enough money to be able to pay the lawyers. I've mentioned this a million times. I've had to travel to Virginia. That was thousands of dollars. Had to buy a laser printer with a scanner on it. I'm printing out tons of documents. I've been through so much toner and paper and FedEx and so now I'm walking to the court, so I don't have to FedEx this. And what's happened is, because of the new normal, you used to be able to go to the pro se intake office at 500 Pearl Street until 5 o'clock and drop your thing off. And it would be filed timely on the day ordered. But they surprised me by letting me know, not on the website, but at the courthouse, that the pro se office, thanks to COVID-19, now closes at 1. And even though the last time I was there well before 1, the office had already closed. So I had to stamp the document with the U.S. Marshals. It is stamped October 29th at 1 p.m., which shows that I was there prior to 1 because I was knocking on the door and talking to the marshals and all kinds of stuff. But then Zweigert entered a letter telling the judge, oh, Goodman was tardy with his thing. There's a stamp right on it that says October 29th. I mean, these guys are looking for anything and everything that they can use to pick at me, to irritate me, to try to embarrass me, to put out stupid videos, stupid tweets. They are using the internet, they're using social media to harass. And we need laws that stop these guys from doing that. Social media is one thing, but these lawsuits, it is incredibly irritating. And it could have real serious repercussions if I'm not able to successfully defend. So I want to thank all the people who have been sponsoring the show, whether it's as a monthly sponsor on subscribestar.com/crowdsource the truth or patreon.com/crowdsource the truth, and especially to the people who have sponsored the Counter Lawfare Fund. Very helpful. There's a lot of other stuff that I want to talk about, but I'm not sure that I'm ready to talk about it just yet. Oh, look, that's appropriate. Trolls who want a brain. Well, anyway, that's about that for right now. I'll be back.